You're good.
Are we on?
Yeah, I think so.
We're good? We're on?
Oh, sorry, people. We just had to go and have a coffee and a lie down.
A Bex and a good lie down. All right, so assuming that people have found us again, because I think we've changed.
Let's see if people are finding us.
We might give people a minute or two
Where
to
are our
locate, because I
friends?
think we have a new stream. So
the internet's. We don't need this stunt thing, do we?
I don't think we need the
Spanking
stunt.
paddle.
Can you just put it over here? Okay, just in
right,
case
yep.
it's.
I'm just going to do some hand sanitizer because this will save the world.
We've got 4 people back in.
We've got a few people back in. Hello.
Hello. I'm still Kate. She's still Arian, and we are still doing the thing.
We are. So now that we have our needle threaded and we've done a bit of, probably not very successful stitching. But anyway, such is life. Sewing on buttons is one of those things that actually happens pretty regularly, and I had actually meant to bring a coat that I legit need to replace the button on because it's falling off, but I forgot. So, Saturday morning, what can I say?
Also, can I just say a stitch in time saves 9. That's the most ridiculous thing ever, but actually sewing it on before it falls off and then you have to find a new button, that would be, I would say that to my children, but would I actually do that myself? No.
What are the odds? We'll see. Basically use that anchor point to that way of anchoring to sew your buttons on, and your buttons will stay on much better. And sewing it, once you've done that, sewing a button on is the simplest thing in the world. You literally, they've got some holes, and you just go around and around and around. It is about the least technical thing you could possibly do.
Unless it's a coat. Coat gate is that you should, or depending on, this is something I found out through bitter experience, is to leave a little bit of space, because it is super flat on the surface and then the fabric pulls it. I try not to go too tight. Sometimes I've been known to put a little pencil or thing underneath to leave a little bit of gap, so there's a bit of wiggle. So that's the other thing, is that I try and have a bit of a gap. Do you do that?
I don't. It does probably depend. This button has 2 holes.
Yes.
You can get buttons with 4.
Look at that. One I prepared a little bit earlier, which you can't see because internet, is a button with 4 holes.
And that's probably going to be that distance is going to be more of an issue with 4 holes, because you've got a broader base that it's connected to.
She does physics
going
as
to
well
give
as
you.
buttons.
This is going to give you plenty of wiggle room, and you can just make it as tight as you like.
That's true.
And there's also shank buttons, but we won't.
Is a shank button like who's that bear from Peru?
So the Paddington, yes.
That's it. Is that
So the favorite mistake to make with this, and I have seen many people do this, is that you get to the back and you go back to the front.
Cannot.
And you
tell
end up
how
wrapping
many
the thread around
times
like
I've
that.
done that.
And that seems like something you couldn't possibly do, except you do all the time. It's ridiculous.
Watching TV and sewing.
Yes.
That's how that happens.
And the really annoying thing about that is that you then have to unthread your needle
But because
to pull it back.
But because you have genius method of going through with the 2 loose ends, see, my way, which was to put 1 loop through and then come down and tie a knot and then all of that, but you would then have to cut it and start again and then give up and go, I'm going to have some tequila. This means you can unthread and faces saved. This is why, can I just say, this is a completely new thing to me. I think this is something that embroidery people do.
It is where it comes from.
I don't do proper embroidery, just do the fake stuff. And this is why I absolutely love this way of putting the 2, I can't not do rude fingers, putting the 2 pieces of cotton through the needle head. It's a little bit harder, but if you've got a threader.
Yeah, even if you're blind, you can do it. If you've got blind like me, you can do it with a threader. So yeah, just go around and around a lot of times, basically. It just gives you more strength. There's no right answer. I tend to just keep going till I'm bored. Never run out of thread because I always end up cutting too much, but one or the other. And then you do have to do the dreaded finish off. So the magic way of threading the needle does solve the anchoring. The beginning doesn't solve the finishing off problem, which is still awful. But basically you create a knot with your needle. So you do a small stitch at the back, which is, again, I'm not really able to show you properly, but you just take a very small stitch through the fabric. Before you pull that tight, you put your needle through the loop that you're making with the stitch, and that is your knot that ties it off. And I tend to do that twice.
Yep, me too. Or more.
Yeah, and you can go back through other bits of thread and stuff. Anything that looks like it'll make it anchor a little bit better.
I also go with the, I think that's the way I was taught as a very young person, was that you, like in a sewing machine, it just, that it doesn't knot. An actual sewing machine just goes forward, 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 forward. So what they do is in a sewing machine, which we are never going to teach you ever, can I just say, so hard. I mean, we can do it, but not by the internet. Is it goes, a sewing machine, they go forward, forward, back, back, forward, forward, back, back, forward, forward, back, back with no actual knot. And that's effectively the same thing, but takes forever, which is another way of finishing off if you're sewing.
So when you're done, you just,
this is better.
when you're done, just cut it off with your little scissors down close to the
with
surface.
a red ribbon.
And that's it.
Oh, and this just, so Ariane just dropped her needle, and if we were sitting on the couch drinking tequila and watching Big Brother, gosh, that show's odd, stick it on a magnet. I found these magnets. I don't actually know what they're useful for. My fridge won't accept it. It's absolutely, it's just absolute nonsense. But they are reasonable to have around.
They will actually hold a magnet.
Yes,
needle. I didn't know that. That's kind of cool.
Well, I saw somebody on the internet fixing a phone, because I don't know if you know about the Reconnect project through the Bauer. They fix phones and then they give them to people escaping and surviving domestic violence. So anyway, I was looking up how to do it myself, and I thought, actually I'd rather get the grown-ups to do it. And a fellow who was fixing phones was putting them on these magnets, and then, because it's a very specific way with phones where they go, and not getting them mixed up, because some of them look the same but they're not. Anyway, that magnet was a magic trick that I just learnt during the week.
That's cool, because that's one of those things that come in the letterbox and I have no particular use for. So that's great.
Yeah.
I think we haven't got a lot of time left, so I think we were going to talk about types of thread, which is a thing that's useful to know. You can buy, like a lot of junk shops, $2 type shops sell thread, and it tends to be crap. Which the problem with crap thread is that it's not strong, and you end up having to do your repairs twice. The reason that most of your thread is polyester is the fact that cotton or linen thread is nowhere near as strong. So polyester will hold longer. If you're going to have a small amount of thread in the house, grey is reasonably adaptable for most things, but having a black and a white will cover an awful lot of stuff. The other rule when choosing thread to repair something or work on fabric is you'll never get the colour exactly right. Err on the side of being darker rather than lighter. A thread that is darker than the fabric behind it will not show up anywhere near as clearly as one that's lighter. So that's
it's like dandruff on the dark shoulders.
Yeah. So this colour thread not going to be useful for a whole lot of greens, because it's only going to be useful for greens that are lighter and brighter than that.
And it's probably pretty awful quality, I've got to say. If it looks like, I mean, this is a terrible thing to say, but I find that the branded cottons or threads, they're proud of what they've made. I mean, they are still, of course, they're artificial, they're made from oil, and it's a bad thing, but it is saving your fabric. Yeah. For and your garment or whatever it is for a very long time. You will see, I don't know if you go to second-hand shops, you'll see stuff like this. This is not really for sewing. I'm sure that people who do sew would use stuff like this. This is for something called an overlocker, and that's 2 needles and a blade. And it's a machine, and they are terrifying because they are really problematic if they get unthread or broken. I've lent mine to people, and I will never do that again because it's been broken every single time, and I'm very, very sad about it. But so that's what I'm saying is this, just if you happen to see that kind of stuff, is I would steer clear away from that. People who use overlockers and know them, they know what they're talking about. This is not for you. This is another kind of thing that you might see in the supermarket. Yes, it will work. Or if you saw it at the Bauer, if they had some sewing supplies, that's fine. It will work. But my preference would be to go for a good quality cotton, because it will
it's essentially the thread. Your thread is part of your toolkit. It's rather than so you need decent tools.
It's a trade-off.
It's a trade-off. The thread, you're better off having a good quality thread that's strong and that will hold, and do the job and keep your item functional for longer than to use, you know, a natural, you know, as nice as linen and cotton seems in principle. It actually doesn't work very well.
Yeah, and it's saving the whole garment from landfill. And there are things that you can do with garments that are no longer at all salvageable. I mean, one, you can, you know, if it's a beautiful piece, you can ask your friends. You know, does anybody want this? You can put it on those Facebook groups for sharing stuff around as well if it's particularly lovely. Or somebody might, if it's a gorgeous fabric, someone who does something like quilting might want to take that particular fabric or whatever. Or sometimes very small pieces of hilarious fabric. You can get gorgeous fabrics these days for the quilters. You could put it on a pocket on something. At my child's school at the moment, they're about to put pockets on t-shirts, because that's what you need, and pajama t-shirts. Of course, that's what you need, a pocket in your pajamas. Anyway, and they're going to get some contrasting fabric and put it in their pocket.
So we've got about 5 minutes left. If anybody has any quick questions that they'd like us to answer, any clarifications for anything that we've said so far, anything like that, just chuck that up and we can address that.
We can, yeah, or make it up.
Oh, I'm very good at that. Yeah.
Oh, I know. And one thing I will say is the thing, so you can use pins. If you don't have pins, because, you know, you're trying to hold two pieces of fabric together, if there wasn't the thing on there, to fix, say, a split pocket or a seam or something like that, you still can use things like pegs or bulldog clips. The trick I've only just found out in the last century is glue sticks. Okay, yes, it's plastic and not ideal, but I always think do your own sums in terms of the environmental impact. My children always have glue sticks around that they're doing weird and wonderful things with and leaving the lids off. But to hold
some left over at the end.
There's always you can get a little paintbrush or lip brush in there. Yep. Yeah. And using a glue stick to hold two pieces of fabric together when you were going to hand sew it is an absolute genius hack or if, you know, if you don't have the ability, or for whatever reason you can't do pins, or you don't have pins or whatever like that, that is, some people use sticky tape and all sorts of weird and wonderful things and weights, but that was something that hadn't occurred to me with the very end of the glue stick, which this is, and I don't support any particular brand or whatever, but
and speaking of glue, the answer to how to fix something is never ever glue. Never.
Unless it's furniture.
Unless it's furniture.
I beg your pardon.
But when we're dealing with fabric, never ever glue. Tonya Todman lied. Don't ever glue anything.
That is a true fact. I've ruined beautiful clothes with trying to fix that, and all of the iron-on kind of stuff. Not so much. Doesn't really.
Iron-on stuff is excellent to hold it in place while you stitch it on.
Yeah.
So, I sew patches on things all the time, and I try to get the iron-on patches so that they are very solidly in place as I stitch it on.
Yeah, you really do have to, don't you? That's very true. So what else do we want to talk about? I think more questions. Replacement zips and buttons and supplies and things like, where can I get them? I think was a question that we heard.
We did have a question about the pockets as well, if that's coming loose or torn. But we are coming up to the final.
Yeah, the trouble is we would need to see. It really does depend on how that pocket is torn and in what way. So it's a little bit difficult.
And that's definitely something we can do in a one-on-one session.
Yes, absolutely.
If they want to book in if you're interested, if you've got a specific project, you can book in a one-on-one session with us, and we can video chat with you.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yes. And so the bikes are next week, and we're going to be back in a month, if you'll have us back and if the internet loves us still. And so we do want to say that the Bower is having a fundraiser at the moment, because it's all pretty much, it's a charity. We try to be as inclusive as possible. They're not making any profits. They are all about the environment and the right to repair things. So the Bower is now called Bower. It's like Facebook, bower.org.au. You can delve into their where to find the fundraiser there at the moment. It'd be really great if people felt like giving money through the Bower. That'd be terrific. And also on the Bower is if you have something you need to move on, they also have you can, like a piece of furniture, a piece of something, if the Bower can't take it, they have on there where to recycle things. It's all, I think there's a whole bunch of councils, and they'll tell you, I've got an old gas bottle, what do I do with that, and stuff like that.
The website for the fundraiser is givenow.com.au/the Bower.
I'll be putting that in the comments.
Oh, excellent, in the comments.
And I think next month we might look at knitted stuff. Might look at darning, finding holes in things.
Yeah.
and how to repair them, among
Um,
other things.
And we'll
That's-
also at one stage talk about genes, but that will be quite a fair bit of time, and we won't be able to tell you much. But we will actually. There are always questions about genes, aren't
Yeah.
there? That is a thing. We appreciate it, and it's coming.
Yep.
But
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
I think that's that we're
That's great.
We are
Thank you
done.
very much.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thanks everybody.